how do you stay true in scaling Plunge, especially with all the other Plunge movements and companies coming through?
I mean, all I got is myself at the end of the day. I got to look in the mirror. I got to go home. My partner, my family knows who I am. Like, I got to be that, I have a good system around me to keep me in check. Have I also learned over the years things that I was steadfast? Like, that is just, some might call it rationalization. Some might call it growth. Like, and it's like, oh, I've adjusted how I view that thing. And life, I'd like to think I'm always making the most thoughtful and the right choice. And sometimes, man, it's hard because there's days that it's like, I thought I made the right choice and I reflect 3 months later and it's like, shouldn't have done that. We need to make a change, and like what that is. We have a core value. It's all boats rise at the company. And it's really the underlying meaning of it is do the right thing, create good karma, and build win-win relationships. So it's like that core value helps us. Like I tend to like in business, it's very helpful to have that core value because there could be a lot of people at the table with different opinions, different values, different life experiences. To me, it's a huge cutting of corner. To someone, it's like, we're not cutting a corner. But when we like have that core value that we can like put in the middle of the table and we all can be very honest to it. And there's different levels of how that comes to us. But if we could all say we're doing the right thing right now, this is a win-win. This is a win-win for everyone that's involved. It makes the decision-making a lot easier.
Yeah. So it's really, what I heard from you was that you make your decisions based on your values.
Yeah. And then it's like being like, sometimes it's like, well, what are my values? And those values, I think I'm more of the side of like values can adjust, but be honest when they're adjusting, when they're changing. I think about like, again, the business, we have 5 core values in our business that we spend a lot of time working on. And they all obviously stem from really Mike and I, and they're essential to us. But they're also now, like, that's what Plunge is its own entity. Like I have core values in my life. Like we have now created this entity that's like a living and breathing thing that lives by these 5 core values. And like any core value, are we perfect? No. Are there times where it's like, man, we got to put some work in here. We're not living to our core value. Or man, we are crushing it right now. And let's keep leaning in on it. Let's double down. Like, and that has been, you ask on, again, cutting corners, it's like putting that, again, guardrails in place is just another way that I don't really have, like I sleep fine. Like I know it's also like I'm here right now in Austin, we donate to a number of charities, but I'm out here for a benefit dinner. That has been a big win for me because it's like, we just have a process that money goes towards these organizations. I don't have to think about it. We thought intentionally who we want our money to go to, what matters to us, where we want to see people that cold plunge, where their dollars go back to. That was all thought through. But again, we just have a process that can take out of, because sometimes business, you got to make some hard, badass decisions that that voice can show up and be like, dude, just cut this little corner right here.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm asking.
And to me, it's, again, I'm human. Anything that we've seen another human do, I am fully capable of doing that. I'm not above that. No one is. And I don't care what we've seen the worst on the planet, deep in our side of us, we are capable of those things. So create a system and a structure that becomes so strong you can't, whenever that loudest thing shows up, you have a guardrail, you have a protection. So I think it starts, and I would just say, like, from a business perspective, start it sooner than later. Because when it's later, there's actually some significance of, it makes a lot, you could justify it a lot more to not do that decision. But if you don't have that protection in place, you'll make the bad decision. Say, like, so find what core values are to this entity beforehand, create the systems and structures that you're gonna sleep good at night. Check in on it consistently, make sure everyone's are we doing this? Like, what is our process? And I think that's, I think that's in the business world, a huge opportunity for companies to differentiate and do that.
Look, this conversation's fractal for what I'm about to present. Stan Tatkin, he's a really massive influencer on relationships, intimate relationships, Dr. Stan Tatkin. And he was saying that when your values are aligned as a couple and you actually have written down those values and you check in on those values and you live your life according to those values, those are the couples that are successful, right? Longevity, health, freedom to express themselves, love, accept, all the good stuff. But it's the same thing in business. Yet I think if there's not a check-in process, it can be really easy to have values that are like 15 years old. You're a totally different person. You're a completely different guy than you were 5 minutes ago. Definitely 15 years ago, you were a different guy, for sure.
Totally.
So the way in which we can check in on this is actually really beneficial. And I think God, universe brings us challenges to make us check in. What's been the biggest challenge in growing Plunge where you really had to check in and go, we're going to change, and here's why, and here's the new value? What's one of those moments for you?
Well, I do remember Mike and I had created values when we first started the company. It was important to us. And they were they weren't bullshit. They mattered to us, but we didn't go deep enough. It was like authenticity and these things. And it's like
single word values.
Yeah, just like, exactly. And then we had some meaning behind them that we created, but they were very... Yeah, and I remember they were just very, I want to say surface. There was a deeper place we could have gone. And we had a business coach who worked with us for a number of years. He came in the first day and we had written these on the wall in our small first office. And he was like, those are bullshit. Those are those are cute. Like those look like something you just write on a wall. And I was like offended, I'm like, no, you don't. I am a, like, this is important to me. Yeah. Like we spent time on this. And, it was just his way of like, and there was like, it was a new way that I hadn't experienced yet of how to go deeper into like, no, you need to like get to the core of what this is to you. And, we spent 6 months on that journey. And so that was like a call out where we shifted all of what our values were to this new front of like what our 5 core values are. That was like a big one. One thing we treat our culture like our P&L. And we have every month, we have these anonymous scoring that everyone participates in. It's not mandatory, but we really encourage everyone to do it. Get in and you kind of rank all these questions around the organization. It's a chance to be anonymous, give feedback, and we get our scoring. And then I go through with our head of HR and people and culture. I do monthly department head meetings on everyone's scores, where your department stacked up. The good, the bad, the ugly. Really, it's no one's in trouble. We're just trying to understand like how do we get better. But I do this with our P&L. I sit down with every department head to go over your budget. You see where we landed, what the month looked like. So we treat that on the emotional score as well and the culture score. And those meetings are hard because sometimes they're great. You get, it's great when people are like, I love it. Yeah, it's my favorite place. And then it's hard when it's like, man, this is some, sometimes it's like, okay, I could kind of not dismiss that, but it's more of a personal thing that's going on here. But sometimes it's like very good, huge, honest feedback for us. Mm-hmm. And that has been how we navigate that and being honest to like, man, we're coming up short here. Or, the team, some of our team's not happy here. Like that hits me harder than seeing the bottom line not doing well to me personally. Mm-hmm. And we just really spent a lot of time there. And so that was a rant about, but we just put a lot of effort into that, which again, it's another way that our team are held accountable. We can't cut corners because we're actually asking like the rest of our team to acknowledge if they see it, they're going to call it out. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. We've set core values. And so now it's like they've all entered into the company under these core values. So there's a lot of accountability that can go on across the board. And I think it's, again, playing a long game into the health of the organization, trusting that is going to just win on the long scale.
It's awesome because you're describing this check-in process that in relationship is so freaking powerful as well. I'm curious if like some of the things and how you run a business have transferred to you and your lady?
Yeah.
In certain ways?
It has. I think we're like really good. It's funny. We've spent like a year. We haven't got them down yet. We're really trying to develop our values. And we have like this list, but we haven't gotten our core values as a family yet. So it's a process we're in right now, kind of doing the deeper dive. Have obviously our core things that we're in connection on, and we've like why we fell for each other and why we're in partnership, and we discuss it. But we're in this midst of like, it's so funny. I did it, day one with the business, but haven't done it. It's taken, 6 years now for Ryan and I to get to the spot where we're gonna, put our values down.
Why do you think it took 6 years?
Well, I think the personal, like the business, it was always like, I knew what I wanted from the business day one. I don't think I always knew what I want in a relationship from day one. And that's evolved. And maybe it's maturity, maybe it's life, both of us. Like that just like started out, we were just dating. Then it's like, oh, okay, we're going to date. Oh, we're in a committed relationship. And then it's like, oh, do you want a family? I don't know if I want a family. Like we go like these things that's like our paths have gotten more narrow of, okay, this is where we're going and we're more clear on it. Where the business was pretty clear. I didn't know we would go do 45 million, facilitate 45 million plunges, but it was like, I want to be the biggest cold plunge company in the world. Like that was like a thing. So it was set that where the relationship, it's kind of had to take time to unfold of like, maybe it was immaturity on me starting out in a relationship. But now as we've gotten older, it's like, oh no, we're building a life together. And that's like more clear. And it's just taking time to get that clarity.
So like when someone eats your yogurt, there's a conversation and you're like, hey, let's create a relationship where we have enough for everyone, or, just living with another human being is so interesting, right? In roommate situations or definitely in intimacy, because you really get to know somebody by, Seth Godin, one of my favorite quotes. He goes, you don't know if you can work with somebody until you work with them.
Yep.
And it's so true. It's like really slow to hire and then very quick to fire.
Yep.
Because people are always showing you through their behavior who they are.
Yep.
And I find that in intimate relationship, all of my stuff that I don't want to look at just pours right out because she's like holding up a mirror going, do you see this? And I do it for her too. But there's this almost, when you develop a wood statue, you start with this big block of wood and then you refine it down. And then 6 years down the road, there's this clarity moment. And I think that's what all of us are wanting before we have the purpose clarity, is like the clarity of the end result. And dude, if I've learned 10,000 times this one lesson, I have an exact picture of what I want to do. And then God universe brings me all this mystery that knocks me on my ass. And then I get in victim mentality. And then I see something even more exciting than the thing that I set out to create in the first place. Has that been a journey for you with Plunge? Like you said, you wanted to be the biggest cold plunge company in the world. That was your initial goal when
it's
you
so
started?
funny I say that. And as I said, I was like, no, I actually didn't say that. Deep in my nature, that's what I want to go do. Like I want to go do things great.
Yes.
Like that's just, I won't start.
I'm not saying it's bad.
As I'm more cleaning that up, like as I said, I was like, that wasn't at the tip of your tongue when I started. Like I wasn't saying that. Okay. It was more, how do I go to A to B? Like going to the biggest cold plunge, it's like, dude, you got to figure out how to build these things and actually like, show up to someone's house and put it in their home. Yeah. Like, let's focus on that.
Yeah.
So there's that. I think from Plunge has been, I am more that. Like I like to get things started and kind of build. And then am I the best at going to Z? I haven't seen that in my life yet.
Yeah.
I'm good at A to B, a couple steps into the journey, but then there's people that can that are way better operators than me that can, take something even bigger. Yeah. Plunge has been enough of a space that I can go scratch my itch on all the things that has kept me in the game of working on this still with a focus and tenacity. Whether it's scale on the business side, growing all there, building I've always wanted like a team. It was the thing I couldn't get from Capital Floats. I remember building that. And then, it's a place where you have one worker, they work the front desk. You scale that by facilities, but it's not a culture that's built. You get a number of 10 workers there. They're awesome, but they're part-time. They're not there. This isn't their end game. They're working on something else.
Yeah.
And you have your core team. Anyways, Plunge was like, how do I create an environment that we show up every day to work? And this is our full-time gig. And this is like something we're growing in our career around with a mission that we're around. Like that was the dream that I wanted. Plunging became the tool that was allowed us to go facilitate that. But So the long answer of Plunge has allowed me to, it keeps letting me scratch my itch before I'm like, okay, what's the next thing? And I'm going to ride that until that itch isn't being, I got to go scratch it some other way. And then that'll be an honest conversation of what that looks like. What's the transition? Who is the right person? What's that look like? Until then, it's like we have this unique opportunity to, be at the forefront of the preventative health conversation that's taking off in our country, like unique timings. Like how do we, it's great for Plunge, it's great for cold plunge, but it's like, that's the bigger thing we're trying to solve. We go be a part of that conversation, I can guarantee you the company will be successful. If we go be value in that conversation, it will all work out. So I get focused there. I get focused around, product development and what we get to release there and change, and becoming the biggest contrast company in the world, and focusing on these kind of ancient rituals with modern technology, and how do we bring that to the forefront of conversation, creating, healthy family unit structures, and reading these reviews that people, it's changing that, that's getting fed to me. Like I can keep doing this.
Yeah. That scratches your itch.
That scratches my itch 100%.
So what's the clear vision today of Plunge, and how did that change since you started it?
So the original vision, it started, I would say, let's dissect that one. We launched out of a garage. It was kind of out of necessity. Businesses were shut down. I kind of had to figure out this plan B. And that was just kind of, there was also a self-interested side to it of like, I have this like innate thing that I like to be interesting. Like it's a gift and a curse. You know what I mean? Like it sets me out to go do amazing, cool things because I want to go become interesting and that's like what I think is valuable.
To be perceived by others is interesting?
Exactly. That's like perceived by, exactly. So it's like kind of call it an insecurity maybe. Okay. But it's also got me to do some incredible things.
That's honest.
So plunging it wasn't a universal thing because it was also like, this is changing my life, just like floating. How do I bring this at scale? That's kind of been my life. Soccer changed my life. How do I bring soccer at scale? Like that's kind of the premise of how everything goes. So there was truly honest in there, and also like, ooh, this would be interesting. There's no cold plunge companies out there. You would be interesting. You started a cold plunge. Like whether this works or this doesn't, in 10 years, you're going to have this on your interesting experience life resume. You started a cold plunge company.
Yeah.
So those were the starting spots. Like very quickly that becomes, life gets real. Business is growing.
Yeah.
Things are coming at you quick. Customers, you got to service. Employees, you need to hire. Systems, you need to build. Growth, I've got to speed up my growth process to keep this on the rails. That was all through this journey to now. What is I think we want to be a leader in preventative health and be the largest contrast therapy company in the world and be a part of that conversation. And like how we get to go tell that story and do and all that, that's the fun part to go figure out. But those are the things of, that's the company vision.
Well, I feel like I can ask you one of my last questions because we have this cool relationship and we've shared some pretty solid wisdom at the table. You have this huge vision, like being the number one contrast company and being a solution to preventative health. It's pretty big, dude. It's a pretty big ask. It's a big vision. So I've always felt the bigger the vision, the bigger the game, the more the challenge. It's like Aristotle says, nature hates a vacuum. Mm-hmm. The further back you pull the arrow, the farther it's going to shoot. On the road to your vision, what has been the ultimate challenge, personally, professionally, in you fulfilling that vision? And what do you see as the greatest challenge in fulfilling that?
It happened so fluidly, but the time that I quit my job in MLS to go start Capital Floats was like nothing lined up. Like I was happy in life. I had a job that I felt purposeful with. Like all things were pointing in like a really good space. And something inside of me was just like, you have to go rip all this up and go. I had no money. I had to go find people to give me money. It wasn't like, it was just like, that was the greatest challenge because there was no momentum in my life to go be an entrepreneur. And plunge of what we've solved and the challenges we faced are probably, anyone would look on paper that they were so much more than what it was to get capital floats open. But for who I was at that point in my life, that was the hardest challenge I have personally faced. There was so much there. Personally, telling my family, they got behind me. But again, I had a great job. Like as a parent, like you talk about, not that they wanted the safe thing for me. They always supported Ryan to kind of do my thing. But I had to go confront that and give that talk of like, guys, I'm leaving this and I don't know how I'm going to figure this out. Like I'm just going. And so that was like one thing to confront that front, to ask for money and ask for support from people. Like I'd never gone through that. It's very uncomfortable for me. Like to go there, to like build a business plan. And anyways, all the things that came from that, like that took me to my brink of like, think of, suicidal thoughts and things like that of like, dude, I can't do this anymore. And that was in my professional career, by far the greatest challenge that I had, getting that business open, so naive to what I was getting into with just enough confidence to kind of keep moving, which I think is a very lethal, it's a good mix. I put that back on, and I think on paper it might not look, but to me, I know that was like, I was on my last leg getting that thing open.
So it's the starting of the snowball is the hardest. It's starting momentum. Like I think it's Stephen Covey. He has the flywheel effect. Starting the flywheel is the hardest part. But once it's in momentum, it becomes easier. And people look at you and go, oh, well, he's spinning that flywheel so easily. He's 45 million people doing plunges. Like that's so easy, but they don't know the capital floats. They don't know the suicidal thoughts.
That's the piece is like to go build the script. Always in hindsight's like, oh, of course that was going to happen. And there's a moment that we all come through where it's like, no, you got to pick up that pen and that like someone's got to start writing that. And that is it's not a foregone conclusion you're going to get there. And so I think that's like the piece of like, I went from kind of living an interesting life to like, no, I want to be an entrepreneur. Okay. What did that act like to go do that? And I'm always fascinated with like the biggest people that are out there that have built empires. Like they had that moment where there was some moment where nothing was like the script wasn't written. And we look back and like, of course they would have figured it out. And of course, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's all predetermined. I don't know. But they in their journey had to make this flag in the ground. Like I'm going to go do this and make some shift in the momentum to go do what they did.
Whoa. If you enjoyed that one you just saw, you will love this one on the screen. Click it and enjoy.